There shall never be another season of silence until women have the same rights as men on this green earth. Susan B. Anthony. On July 19, 1848, the first ever American feminist protest, where Susan B. Anthony and many other reformers encountered change and exchanged opinions, and the beginning of the women's suffrage reform era, took place at Seneca Falls, New York. This date began a revolution which furthered into new opportunities for women of all kinds today, by brave women voting illegally, the creation of new petitions, meeting up with other people who believed in equality, and leaving a legacy for generations of men and women to follow. The Seneca Falls Convention of 1848 was the first ever women's rights convention founded by Elizabeth Cady Stanton and co-founded by Lucretia Mott, held in Seneca Falls, New York. Over 300 women and 40 men went to this convention to discuss the rights of women. The most famous document written there was the Declaration of Sentiments, which, just like a few other documents made there, tried to get women the right to vote. This Declaration of Sentiments listed 15 things that women were distraught about. This document was signed by 68 women and 32 men, roughly one-third of the people who showed up to the convention. This document included: he has never permitted her to exercise her inalienable right to the elective franchise, meaning women could not vote. He has compelled her to submit to laws in the formation of which she has no voice, meaning women had to obey the laws even though they had absolutely no say in them at all. He has withheld from her rights, which are given to the most ignorant and degraded men, both natives and foreigner, meaning women had fewer rights than some men who were sinful and/or criminals. Having deprived her from this first right of a citizen, the elective franchise, thereby leaving her without representation in the halls of legislation, he has oppressed her on all sides, meaning women could not and did not have a representative for them in the government. He has made her, if married, in the eye of the law, civilly dead, meaning that when women were married, their rights to their own bodies were unfortunately no longer theirs. He has taken from her all right and property, even to the wages she earns, meaning married women lost all legal rights over wages and property. He has made her morally an irresponsible being, as she can commit many crimes with impunity, provided they be done in the presence of her husband. In the covenant of marriage, she is compelled to promise obedience to her husband, he becoming, to all intents and purposes, her master, the law giving him power to deprive her of liberty and to administer chastisement, meaning married women had to obey their husbands, who had the right to beat them and even imprison them. He has so framed the laws of divorce as to what shall be the proper causes of divorce, in case of separation, to whom the guardianship of the children shall be given, as to be wholly regardless of the happiness of women, the law, in all cases going upon the false supposition of the supremacy of man, and giving all power into his hands, meaning that once a married couple is divorced, women were not allowed to see their children again. After depriving her of all rights as a married woman, if single and the owner of property, he has taxed her to support a government which recognizes her only when her property can be made profitable to it, meaning single women have to pay taxes, even though they didn't have a say in how the government spent them. He has monopolized nearly all the profitable employments, and from those she is permitted to follow. She receives but a scanty remuneration, meaning women could not work jobs that paid well, and their wages were always lower than men's. He closes against her all the avenues to wealth and distinction, which he considers most honorable to himself. As a teacher of theology, medicine, or law, she is not known. He has denied her the facilities for obtaining a thorough education, all colleges being closed against her. Both of these meaning women could not go to college or university. He allows her in church as well as state, but a subordinate position, claiming apostolic authority for exclusion from the ministry and, with some exceptions, from any public participation in the affairs of the church, meaning women could not be ministers of religion. He has created a false public sentiment by giving to the world a different code of morals for men and women, by which moral delinquencies which exclude women from society are not only tolerated but deemed of little account in man, meaning women were not allowed to act like a man, or they were to be considered an outcast. He has usurped the prerogative of Jehovah himself, claiming it as his right to assign for her a sphere of action when that belongs to her conscience and her God, meaning men were playing God by ordering women to live a certain way. He has endeavored in every way that he could to destroy her confidence in her own powers, to lessen her self-respect, and to make her willing to lead a dependent and abject life, meaning because of the way men acted, it destroyed women's self-confidence and self-respect. Women were obviously treated poorly in this time period, so the people, both men and women, at the Seneca Falls Convention exchanged revolutionary ideas to write the Declaration of Sentiments document. Today, women believe they are just as strong as men, and that idea originally comes from this document and the ideas encountered and exchanged by the important people at this convention. One idea that was exchanged and highly believed in at the convention was that if women are to be taxed and treated like a citizen, they should also have the same rights as one, including but not limited to voting. After the convention, Anthony was put on trial in Rochester, New York, for attempting to vote for Ulysses S. Grant in the presidential election. One quote recorded from this trial was, "The only chance women have for justice in this country is to violate the law, as I have done and shall continue to do." It is obvious that she has influential grit, bravery, and strong will, but not every suffragist was brave enough to do this. This is why Anthony is seriously one of the best examples for women of today. What women can collect from her is to never, ever forget what you believe in, and perform it with not only grace, but guts. Eventually, women became more public with the idea of their rights and how they feel once they noticed that women like Anthony spoke out. A poem from the book Are Women People? A Book of Rhymes for Suffrage Times by Alice Duer Miller, simply titled Women, expresses how a certain suffragist felt about their rights becoming more and more non-existent. I went to ask my government if they would set me free. They gave a pardon crook a vote, but hadn't one for me. The men about me laughed and frowned and said, "Go home because we really can't be bothered when we're busy making laws." Oh, it's women this and women that, and women have no sense. But it's pay your taxes promptly when it comes to the expense. It comes to the expense, my dears, it comes to the expense. It's pay your taxes promptly when it comes to the expense. I went into a factory to earn my daily bread. Men said, "A home is a woman's sphere." "I have no home," I said. But when the men all marched to war, they cried to wife and maid, "Oh, never mind about the home, but save the export trade. For it's women this and women that, and home's the place for you. But it's patriotic angels when there's outside work to do. There's outside work to do, my dears, there's outside work to do. It's patriotic angels when there's outside work to do." We are not really senseless, and we are not angels too, but very human beings, humans just as much as you. It's hard upon occasions to be forceful and sublime when you're treated as incompetents 3/4 of the time. But it's women this and women that, and women's like a hen, but it's do the country's work alone when war takes off the men. And it's women this and women that, and everything you please, but woman is observant, and be sure that woman sees. On that day of July 19th, 1848, Anthony and many other reformers marked the beginning of the women's suffrage reform at Seneca Falls, New York. This revolutionary day rocketed into new opportunities for people of all kinds today by Anthony bravely voting illegally, the suffragists exchanging ideas and writing petitions to speak their mind to people of authority, and meeting up with each other to exchange the idea of a reformation in voting and basically equality as a whole. The people of the Seneca Falls Convention, such as Anthony, are heroes to all women today who can vote, get high-paying jobs, and receive a better education. They created a new hope for all women of the future. one ballot at a time.